My brothers and sisters in Islam, laziness is one of the most destructive diseases that can settle into the heart of a believer. It is not a physical weakness, it is a spiritual illness. It eats away at motivation, drains the soul, and turns days into years of wasted opportunity. And the tragedy is that it doesn't strike with a loud sound or an open battle. It creeps in silently. It begins with a small delay, a postponed prayer, a missed plan, a neglected task, and then suddenly a person looks back and realizes that entire portions of life have been wasted in comfort and idleness. True motivation, my dear brothers and sisters, does not come from merely hearing inspiring words or reading motivational quotes. True motivation begins with purpose. When the heart recognizes the weight of its mission before Allah, the body finds no rest in idleness. Allah created us with a purpose. He said, "And I did not create the jinn and mankind except to worship me." When a believer truly understands that every breath is tied to this divine purpose, laziness can no longer find a place to live. The problem is not that we don't have energy, we have plenty of it. We can spend hours on entertainment, on phones, on meaningless conversations, and yet we claim we are too tired to pray, too exhausted to read Quran, too busy to reflect. The issue is not the body, it is the heart. When the heart forgets its purpose, the limbs lose their drive. When a person wakes up and remembers that this day is a gift from Allah, that it might be the last sunrise they ever see, how could they allow laziness to steal it from them? When a person remembers that every second passing is taking them closer to their grave, how can they sleep through Fajr, scroll through hours of nonsense, and delay every act of goodness for a tomorrow that may never arrive? The one who recognizes his purpose feels urgency. He feels that his time is an amana, a trust from Allah, and he will be questioned about how he spent it. That recognition fuels him more than any external motivation ever could. My brothers and sisters, the heart that is alive with purpose finds rest only in action. Look at the prophets of Allah. Look at the messenger of Allah. Was he ever described as lazy? Never. He was constantly engaged in worship, in dawah, in helping others, in serving his family. Even though he was promised paradise, he stood in the night until his feet swelled. When asked why he exerted himself so much despite his guaranteed forgiveness, he said, "Should I not be a grateful servant?" That is the mindset of someone whose heart understands its purpose. Gratitude drives action, not comfort. The one who truly appreciates the blessings of life cannot waste them. Laziness comes from heedlessness, ghafla. When a person becomes heedless of Allah, of the hereafter, of accountability, the heart begins to weaken. It stops commanding the body to move towards good. And then Shaitan finds his opportunity. He whispers, "Rest a little. You deserve a break. You can do it later." And that later never comes. Shaitan doesn't tell you to disbelieve immediately. He only wants you to delay obedience until your life expires. That's his success. Allah teaches us in the Quran that time is one of the greatest witnesses against mankind. Betime, indeed, mankind is in loss, except those who believe and do righteous deeds. Notice how belief and righteous deeds are mentioned together. True belief leads to movement. A believer cannot remain idle. He cannot sit while his soul knows it has obligations to fulfill. The one who truly believes acts. The one who delays does not truly realize the value of faith. When a person finds purpose, every act becomes meaningful. The prayer is not just movement. It is a meeting with the King. Reading Quran is not a habit. It is a conversation with the Creator. Helping someone is not a favor. It is a transaction with Allah who will repay with reward. Once the believer internalizes this meaning, he doesn't need external motivation. His engine is the heart. His purpose fuels him. The lazy person, on the other hand, looks for comfort, excuses, and shortcuts. He keeps waiting for the right moment to begin. He wants the motivation to come first. But in the life of a believer, action comes first and motivation follows. The moment you begin to act for the sake of Allah, Allah places barakah in your energy. You feel alive, you feel connected, you feel the sweetness of productivity in His obedience. But if you wait to feel ready, you will never move. The believer moves because Allah deserves action, not because the self feels like it. The Prophet used to seek refuge from laziness in his daily dua. He would say, "Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from anxiety and grief." from incapacity and laziness. Notice how he joined laziness with incapacity. Laziness is a choice, while incapacity is a condition. A person might be physically incapable, but laziness is when the body is fine and the heart has surrendered. So the Prophet I would ask Allah to protect him from both, from not being able and from not wanting to. This shows us that laziness is not only a weakness of discipline, but a spiritual vulnerability that needs Allah's help to overcome. My brothers and sisters, every one of us will feel moments of tiredness. Even the most motivated believer feels drained sometimes. The difference is that the believer doesn't allow that tiredness to define him. He rests with the intention to recover and return stronger. The lazy person rests without purpose and wakes up unchanged. That is the difference between purposeful rest and aimless comfort. One restores you for worship, and the other buries you in heedlessness. When the heart recognizes that it was created to serve Allah, it cannot stand the thought of wasting time. Imagine being in front of your Lord on the day of judgment, and He shows you the hours spent on distractions, the opportunities ignored, the blessings misused. Imagine standing there with nothing to show for decades of life. That image should be enough to shake the soul awake. The believer lives with that awareness every day. He doesn't want to be among those who regret when regret no longer benefits. The early generations of Islam were not superhuman. They were men and women who had a clear purpose. They saw this world as a field for planting deeds, and the next as the harvest. They didn't have entertainment, distractions, or luxury like we do, yet their hearts were filled with ambition for the hereafter. They competed for good deeds as others compete for wealth. They knew that every heartbeat is one step closer to accountability. That knowledge gave them energy that no comfort could replace. When you wake up each morning, ask yourself, why did Allah give me another day? Why am I alive while others are in their graves? It's because Allah still expects something from you. He has given you another chance to worship, to repent, to improve, to serve. When you see the day like that, you will no longer wake up sluggishly. You will wake up with gratitude and urgency. The heart that understands purpose cannot rest. It yearns to fulfill its duty before time runs out. Laziness thrives when life is seen through the lens of comfort. The modern world glorifies ease. Everything is built around convenience, instant food, instant entertainment, instant satisfaction. But the path to Allah is not instant. It requires effort, struggle, and patience. The soul must be trained to endure difficulty. The Prophet said, "Paradise is surrounded by hardships, and hellfire is surrounded by desires." That means the path to eternal comfort is paved with temporary effort, and the path to eternal loss is paved with temporary pleasure. So, which path do we choose? If a person cannot push himself to pray 5 times a day, how will he stand before Allah for judgment? If he cannot leave his bed for Fajr, how will he rise from his grave for accountability? Laziness is not just a worldly problem. It's a preparation for regret in the next life. Every time we give in to it, we are training ourselves to ignore what matters most. The one who trains his soul to overcome laziness in small matters will find it easier in big ones. The heart's purpose is what gives meaning to every action. A student who studies for Allah's sake is not the same as one who studies for the dunya. A worker who earns to feed his family for Allah's sake is not the same as one who works only for status. When you tie your efforts to Allah, you transform your daily routine into worship. And that realization destroys laziness because suddenly everything matters. Even your smallest deeds are opportunities for reward. My dear brothers and sisters, reflect on the words of the Prophet Theo when he said, "Take advantage of 5, before 5 your youth before your old age, your health before your sickness, your wealth before your poverty, your free time before your business, and then your life before your death." Notice how he included free time, because free time is a test. It exposes whether we are driven by purpose or by desire. When a person has time and chooses to use it for worship, for learning, for benefiting others, that is a sign of a heart alive with purpose. But when free time becomes a door to laziness, then that time becomes a witness against us. The believer constantly reminds himself that this world is temporary. Laziness makes you live as though you have eternity here. But every day that passes is gone forever. You cannot buy it back. You cannot retrieve it. You can only use what remains. The intelligent believer looks at time as capital. He invests it in what will bring returns in the hereafter. The lazy person spends it on comfort that disappears. One of the ways to defeat laziness is to renew your intention daily. Before you sleep, ask Allah to grant you strength to worship Him the next day. When you wake up, remind yourself of your purpose. Begin your day with dhikr, with Qur'an, with dua, because that spiritual awakening gives energy to the heart. When the heart is awake, the body follows. You will notice that those who are lazy in worship are also distant from dhikr and Quran. Their hearts are heavy because they have not been nourished. The Quran is fuel for the soul. When you feed the soul, the body obeys. Another key is to avoid procrastination. Every time you delay, Shaitan builds a wall between you and action. Do not wait for a perfect moment to begin. Begin now. Even a small deed done now is greater than a large deed planned for later. The Prophet A said, the most beloved deeds to Allah are those that are consistent even if small. That means progress matters more than perfection. Consistency kills laziness. If you keep moving, even slowly, laziness cannot catch you. And my brothers and sisters, remember that laziness in the deen often extends into every part of life. When a person neglects his prayer, he becomes neglectful in his studies, in his work, in his relationships. Laziness is contagious. It spreads from the soul to every corner of life. But when a person disciplines himself for the sake of Allah, that discipline spreads too. He becomes more focused, more productive, more reliable. The one who can wake up for Fajr consistently can achieve anything because he has learned to defeat his nafs before sunrise. The companions of the Prophet I were people of action. They didn't wait for opportunities, they created them. When they heard a verse revealed, they acted upon it immediately. They didn't say, Inshallah, one day. Their hearts were alive with purpose. That's why they achieved so much in so little time. They changed the world because they didn't let laziness steal their time. They knew that time spent in obedience brings eternal results, while time spent in comfort disappears into regret. We often say, I'll do it when I have time. But my brothers and sisters, time doesn't come to you, you make time. If something matters to you, you prioritize it. The one who says he has no time for Allah is really saying that Allah is not his priority. And that realization should shake the soul. Because if Allah is not our priority now, then what excuse will we give Him when we meet Him? Remember that Allah loves effort. Even if your deed is small, even if your progress is slow, Allah sees your struggle. He knows your fatigue. He knows the moments you pushed yourself despite laziness. And He rewards you for every step. Allah does not expect perfection from you. He expects sincerity and effort. That understanding liberates you from despair. You don't have to be flawless, you just have to keep moving. Sometimes laziness is born from hopelessness. A person thinks, I've failed so many times, what's the point? But that is another whisper of Shaitan. Every new day is a new opportunity to start again. Allah says, do not despair of the mercy of Allah. Even if you've wasted years, start now. The one who repents sincerely and begins today can outpace the one who started earlier but became complacent. What matters is not when you start, but how sincerely you continue. Surround yourself with people of purpose. The company you keep affects your energy. Sit with those who remind you of Allah, who push you to act, who speak about goals and deeds, not gossip and complaints. The Prophet Abe said, a person is upon the religion of his close friend. So let each of you look at whom he befriends. If your companions are lazy, their energy will pull you down. But if your companions are driven by purpose, their presence will lift you. Another cause of laziness is excessive comfort. When the bed becomes too soft, when the meals become too frequent, when the lifestyle becomes too luxurious, the heart becomes heavy. Simplicity sharpens the soul. The Prophet and his companions lived simply, and that simplicity gave them focus. When the dunya occupies your mind, you begin to serve your comfort instead of serving your purpose. Sometimes denying yourself small comforts revives your spirit. Fasting, for example, teaches discipline. It breaks the attachment to ease. That's why fasting is not only about hunger, it's about strengthening willpower. The believer must also make dua frequently against laziness. Do not underestimate the power of dua. Ask Allah daily, O Allah, protect me from laziness, from procrastination, from the sleep of heedlessness. Because the heart cannot overcome this disease without divine help. The soul is weak, but when connected to Allah, it gains strength beyond measure. My brothers and sisters, reflect on the example of those who came before us. Imam Ahmad would study, teach, and write even in his old age. Ibn Taymiyyah wrote books while imprisoned. The scholars of the past would travel months just to learn one hadith. What drove them? Purpose. They saw knowledge and action as pathways to Allah's pleasure. They didn't allow laziness to dictate their lives. And look at the legacy they left. Hundreds of years later, their efforts still benefit the world. That's what purpose does. It gives your life meaning that outlives you. When your heart is connected to Allah, you find motivation even in hardship. When your heart is disconnected, you feel lazy even in comfort. That's the paradox. Laziness doesn't come from exhaustion, it comes from emptiness. The emptier the heart, the heavier the body. Fill your heart with remembrance of Allah, and the body will follow willingly. The secret, my brothers and sisters, is to replace laziness with gratitude. When you realize how many blessings Allah has given you, health, time, intellect, opportunities, you cannot stay still. Gratitude transforms comfort into action. You begin to feel ashamed to waste blessings while others suffer. You realize that Allah didn't bless you to make you lazy. He blessed you to see how you would use those gifts. Every blessing is a test, and laziness is failing that test. When you stand before Allah in prayer, remind yourself that you are standing in front of the one who gave you life, who sustains you, who will question you. Let that awareness ignite the fire of purpose inside you. When you remember who you are serving, laziness becomes a form of disrespect. How can you be lazy in serving the one who gave you everything? And always remember, the journey of defeating laziness is lifelong. Some days you will succeed, other days you will fall, but never stop fighting. Because every small victory against your nafs is a step closer to Allah. The battle is not about perfection, it's about persistence. Keep your purpose alive, keep your heart connected, and laziness will find no home in your life. My brothers and sisters, discipline is the foundation upon which every meaningful life is built. Without it, even the most sincere intentions remain mere wishes, floating in the air, never touching reality. A person may have lofty goals, pure intentions, and a heart filled with desire to serve Allah, but without discipline, those intentions are like seeds scattered on barren soil. They will never grow, they will never bear fruit. Discipline is not simply a matter of forcing oneself to act. It is a deliberate shaping of the self, a training of the soul, a commitment to align one's actions with one's intentions. And it is that alignment that separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. The Prophet taught us through his life that discipline is at the heart of success. He prayed at the same times consistently, even in the most challenging circumstances. He fasted regularly, gave charity continuously, and maintained a rigorous schedule of learning, teaching, and serving his community. That was not because he was extraordinary in ability alone. It was because he was disciplined in devotion. Every action was deliberate, every choice measured, every habit rooted in purpose. Discipline allowed him to transform intention into lasting action. And it is through that same principle that we too can conquer laziness and achieve what we are capable of. Intentions, while noble, are fragile. They may burn brightly for a moment. Yet without a framework to sustain them, they flicker and fade. A person may resolve to pray, to read Quran, to help others, or to improve himself, yet find himself days, weeks, or months later having accomplished little. This is the natural state of human weakness. The soul is drawn toward ease, comfort, and delay. But discipline acts as a bridge over that gap. It is the bridge that carries the believer from the world of I intend to the world of I do. Without it, good intentions remain imprisoned in thought, never released into action. Discipline begins in the heart with a firm recognition of purpose. The one who disciplines himself knows why he is acting and understands that every choice is a test from Allah. He understands that time is fleeting and that every moment wasted is an opportunity lost for good deeds. It is this awareness that allows a person to structure his life, to prioritize what matters most, and to reject what is trivial. Without this awareness, even the strongest habits can crumble because they lack the deeper motivation that anchors them. Discipline without purpose is mechanical. Discipline with purpose is transformative. The practice of discipline requires consistency. The Prophet did not act sporadically. His devotion was measured, intentional, and regular. He did not pray only when he felt motivated. He prayed because it was obligatory, because it was a bridge between him and Allah, and because consistency, however small, builds a life of obedience. Even a few units of prayer performed regularly carry more weight than sporadic bursts of worship. That is the wisdom of discipline. It values persistence over intensity, continuity over fleeting enthusiasm. One of the greatest challenges to discipline is the human tendency to procrastinate. We often say, I will start tomorrow, or when I feel ready, I will act. Yet tomorrow may never come, and readiness is a mirage that recedes as we approach it. The soul is clever in creating excuses, and without discipline, those excuses dominate. Discipline teaches us to act regardless of temporary feelings. It trains the soul to prioritize what is necessary over what is comfortable. It teaches us to push forward, even when the desire to delay is strong. In that moment of choice, discipline determines the outcome. Accountability is another key aspect of discipline. The believer understands that every action, no matter how small, is witnessed by Allah. This awareness creates an internal system of checks and balances. The one who is disciplined does not need external pressure to act. He acts because he knows that Allah is watching, that his life is a ledger of deeds, and that every choice contributes to his ultimate success or failure. This consciousness of accountability strengthens resolve, sharpens focus, and transforms ordinary tasks into acts of worship. Discipline also teaches patience. We live in a world that glorifies instant gratification. We expect results immediately, yet the most meaningful achievements in life require time, effort, and perseverance. The Prophet and his companions did not build their legacy overnight. They labored, they struggled, and they endured hardship. Discipline allows the believer to remain steadfast in the pursuit of long-term goals, to delay temporary pleasure for enduring reward, and to accept that progress often comes slowly yet steadily to those who are patient and consistent. The power of habit cannot be overstated in the practice of discipline. Repetition creates structure, and structure sustains action. Small actions performed consistently develop into powerful habits, and powerful habits shape character. A person who disciplines himself to pray, to read Quran, to speak kindly, or to act justly, develops a life in which these virtues are not occasional acts, but natural expressions of his being. Discipline is not punishment, it is training. It is molding the self into a vessel capable of sustaining goodness, resisting temptation, and pursuing purpose with unwavering focus. Time management is another dimension of discipline. The disciplined believer understands that time is the most precious resource, and it must be allocated wisely. Every day is a finite set of hours, and every hour can be directed toward benefit or wasted in frivolity. Discipline involves making conscious choices about how to use time, avoiding distractions, and structuring the day in a way that aligns with priorities. This does not mean life becomes rigid or joyless. Rather, it means that joy is earned, purpose is maintained, and actions reflect intentionality rather than impulse. Discipline also strengthens the soul against weakness. When the heart is trained to obey obligations and pursue what is right, it becomes resilient against laziness, temptation, and despair. The one who has mastered discipline in small matters finds it easier to act in greater challenges. Discipline creates momentum. Once the soul experiences the reward of consistent effort, it becomes motivated to continue. This momentum is a force that propels the believer forward, even in the face of fatigue, distraction, or adversity. The connection between discipline and sincerity is essential. Discipline alone, without intention, can become mechanical and hollow. A person may follow rules or maintain habits, yet if the heart is not aligned with Allah, the action loses its spiritual impact. True discipline is disciplined for the sake of Allah, not for appearance, recognition, or worldly gain. It is a conscious alignment of intention and action, ensuring that every effort contributes to divine reward. The one who acts in sincerity finds that discipline no longer feels like restriction, but rather freedom. Freedom from weakness, distraction, and regret. The Prophet exemplified discipline in every aspect of life. His fasting was regular, his prayers consistent, his charity measured and deliberate, and his engagement with people purposeful. Even when faced with immense challenges, he did not abandon discipline. His example teaches us that discipline is not merely about rules. It is about internalizing a rhythm of life that prioritizes duty over desire, consistency over fleeting enthusiasm, and action over passivity. One practical method to cultivate discipline is to begin with small, achievable goals. The soul can be easily overwhelmed if presented with too much at once. Start with manageable steps, establish routines, and gradually build capacity. Even the smallest act, if performed consistently, develops strength and confidence. Discipline grows through repeated success, and each small victory over the self reinforces the ability to act with purpose in larger matters. The role of environment should not be underestimated. The company one keeps, the spaces one inhabits, and the influences one absorbs all affect discipline. Surround yourself with those who exemplify commitment, who encourage effort, who remind you of purpose, and who discourage laziness. Similarly, create an environment that reduces distractions, promotes focus, and allows for the consistent pursuit of goals. Discipline is easier when the surroundings support rather than undermine effort. Self-reflection is an essential companion to discipline. The believer regularly evaluates his actions, assesses progress, and identifies areas of weakness. This reflection is not for self-condemnation, but for adjustment and improvement. Discipline involves honesty with oneself, acknowledging failures, and taking corrective steps. The one who reflects regularly ensures that habits remain aligned with purpose, and that intentions continue to translate into meaningful action. Discipline also intersects with humility. A person who is disciplined recognizes that his strength and capacity come from Allah. He does not become arrogant or complacent, but understands that his ability to act consistently is a blessing that requires gratitude. Humility prevents discipline from turning into rigidity or self-righteousness, keeping the soul balanced and receptive to correction. In addition, discipline requires resilience in the face of setbacks. Human beings are prone to mistakes, lapses, and failures. The disciplined person does not view these as insurmountable obstacles, but as opportunities to learn and return stronger. Discipline teaches the believer to rise after every fall, to continue striving even after failure, and to maintain consistency despite difficulties. This resilience transforms adversity into a platform for growth and weakness into a pathway to strength. The ultimate goal of discipline is to integrate action into character. When the soul is trained to act consistently in accordance with intention, obedience to Allah becomes natural, ethical conduct becomes instinctive, and goodness permeates every aspect of life. Discipline is not an external imposition, it is the internal cultivation of a self that aligns with divine purpose. The one who masters this integration finds that action, intention, and heart become unified, creating a life of enduring impact and spiritual fulfillment. Moreover, discipline strengthens other virtues. Patience, gratitude, courage, and compassion are all enhanced by consistent practice. The one who is disciplined in prayer develops patience. The one who is disciplined in charity cultivates gratitude. The one who is disciplined in knowledge gains wisdom. Discipline is the framework within which all virtues can flourish. Without it, even the strongest inclinations toward good may falter under the weight of distraction, desire, and inconsistency. Brothers and sisters, recognize that discipline is a lifelong journey. It is not perfected in a day, nor does it reach its peak without persistent effort. Yet every step taken toward disciplined living produces immediate benefit. Every small victory over procrastination, every moment of consistency, every deliberate act of obedience builds character, strengthens the soul, and brings one closer to Allah. The Prophet said, "The most beloved deeds to Allah are those that are consistent, even if small." That is the essence of discipline. It is not measured by magnitude alone, but by regularity and persistence. A small deed performed daily carries immense weight, far surpassing sporadic acts done with fervor but lacking continuity. Discipline ensures that the believer's life is a stream of ongoing goodness rather than intermittent bursts. Finally, understand that discipline is a gift from Allah. It is nurtured through doer, self-awareness and effort. Ask Allah to guide your intentions, to strengthen your resolve, and to help you transform desire into action. When your heart is firm, your purpose clear, and your will aligned, discipline becomes a natural extension of your being, a bridge that carries you from thought to deed, from intention to accomplishment, from the ordinary to the extraordinary, and from weakness to strength